Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Lily Verdone. She is the CEO of MALT, Marin Agricultural Land Trust. And I'm so very pleased to have you with me today. Hi, Lily.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It's my pleasure, and it's mutual here. So, for those not familiar with what you do with Marin Agricultural Land Trust, MALT, just so we use it as a starting place, would you just let everybody know what that is?
Yeah, of course. So MALT, Marin Agricultural Land Trust, is a land trust. We're based in Marin County in Northern California. And MALT was the first land trust in the nation that focused on farmland protection. So we were founded in 1980 by two women, Ellen Strauss and Phyllis Faber, who brought together this coalition of ranchers and environmentalists and community leaders to protect the future of farming and land in Marin County. And at that time, there was a lot of pressure from development. There was not a lot of support for agriculture. It wasn't connected to all these stack benefits that it is now. And so our co-founders, Ellen Strauss and Phyllis Faber, they came together from really different backgrounds. Ellen Strauss was a dairy woman and came from a dairy family. Phyllis Faber was an environmentalist in East Marin, and they brought this group together and created a movement really that's now impacted across the country. There are dozens of agricultural land trusts throughout the nation. There is a big land trust community throughout the United States and internationally. And now, 40 plus years later, Malt has protected close to 60,000 acres of farmland in Marin forever. And we're working with farmers and ranchers across the North Bay thinking about how not only to protect land for agricultural use, but what it means to build stewardship, how to actually work through the land, have outputs that are benefiting people, the economy, and the environment. And our mission is to protect Marin agricultural land for agricultural use. And we have a vision to have a thriving and inclusive agricultural community in a healthy and diverse natural environment.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, that is a tall order what you guys are doing. And there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm excited to hear from you how that connects with your past and all that you've done before and leads you to what you hope to achieve going further. Each episode that we have features, some part of this global conversation. And, I'm just curious the role that you plan to make given your background. So, if we could, let's just start a little bit before you came on board here and talk about what your mission has always been. Because I don't know, has it changed? Has it evolved? Or have you always had your eye on the prize here? So, if you could.
Yeah, well, I think the proper place to start is that I grew up in this area, and so I was born in Marin County, and I grew up in Marin County, and then we moved to Sonoma County, and so I've always been, really just so fortunate to be immersed in this beautiful environment. And I have never had a straight path. I put myself through both my undergraduate and my graduate degree, and just really kind of finding my path as I made it. And I immersed myself in the experience, and so I had really a wonderful opportunity to. I was doing a pre-vet program at University of Nevada, Reno, and I had saw a talk on environmental restoration, and this was back in the late '90s, and there I had no idea that that was even a thing, and so I did some research, and I quickly was able to transfer down to Sonoma State, which at the time was had a really forward-thinking restoration track in their environmental studies program, which was kind of one of the only few in the undergraduate space. And then things just started plugging away from there. I worked my way through my undergraduate degree. I transferred up and did a master's degree there at Sonoma State as well. I was and just started working. I got My first role was with in Sonoma, and I was working on invasive weeds and watershed management. And then I just started plugging away from there, and have quickly found that my although I went into it with a very, heavy science approach, that's not how I think. I'm more of a big scale planner. And so I started working my way up. I worked with the Nature Conservancy for over a decade, doing a lot of work around climate change and people and nature, and how do we have impacts on the ground and impact communities in a positive way that's bringing people together to solve big problems. And the biggest problem I think we're facing now is climate change in that environmental space, and it hits on all factors of our lives, from the economy, like I said earlier, to how we live day to day, how we make choices, how we vote, how we enjoy our world and the world around us, and how we think about the future. So for me, that's really been really the main driver of the work that I do, is bringing people together to solve problems, specifically around land use and around climate change. And so coming to be able to work for Malt is such a dream, because it really, we're bringing all those things together. We have, the food space, which is so important, and we can't have, food without clean water and healthy soils and people who have a viable, economic background, and can actually afford to live in an area and work in an area. And so bringing everybody together around agriculture is such a fantastic way to solve those problems.
Wow, that's a really, I appreciate your story and how you got where you are. And it all seems to just pile on top of each other to make the perfect amount of, it makes sense. You're following it. You can follow the thread really easily, and it's really perfect. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I know that our viewers and listeners really appreciate the story behind the person. I think it's inspiring. It's inspiring, invigorating, pardon me. And it also talks to sort of what's important to you. And I'm curious, because as I talk to many people that are, trying to create change, whether around climate change, whether around food insecurity, whether it's better for you foods, one thing pops up for me that, I keep wanting to ask is, did you decide to do this out of a passion? Was this because of a passion, or was this because of the problem?
Nature has always been very healing, and a place that I can go and spend time outside, and I feel better personally. And that's always been the case for me. And I grew up and was fortunate enough to be able to live in an area in Northern California. Is so beautiful, and you can be at the beach, and you can be in the redwoods, and be in the mountains. And so that's always been appealing to me. And so, and I'm also a problem solver. And so I see nature through this, beneficial place for people personally, for me. And then I also see it as a place to solve problems. If you're thinking about climate change, if you're thinking about fire resilience or clean water needs, or agriculture and having local foods, you need to have the place. And so being able to protect land is a really critical way, and a good first step, and a permanent input. So if we're able to protect land and then use it in a way that's beneficial, and whether you're protecting agricultural land and it's working land and natural land, and you're doing better practices for soil health, then you're bringing in more carbon, and you're helping reduce impacts for emissions. And so that's a huge benefit. And the solutions that nature brings are so clear and so easy and so streamlined, that that's where my passion and a problem solving aspect come together for me.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think to me, when I hear problem solver, it's such a consistent, um, it's a, most entrepreneurs and people at senior levels, just want to solve the problems. They want to fix things. Am I right?
Yes.
They just want to fix it. We see it. We see it's a clear path. I don't understand why
Yeah.
nobody else is seeing it, but I
Yeah,
see
let's go.
it. Let's go, right? So as we talk about that and problem solving, one thing that has become, a really large issue, um, even more so here on the West Coast, I think, is water conservation because we have such a problem with that. So I'm wondering your thoughts on any strategies um, for sustainability among the land trust and, working to create an environment that is understanding what's going on with global change and creating strategies and changes with farmers to preserve the land and build a more regenerative um, system.
Yeah, I mean, water is such a huge issue. This year we've been so fortunate coming out of a massive drought that was epic on all proportions, and we'll see it again, and we'll see it sooner than we want to see it. And these episodic environmental issues that have been happening and happening more frequently and um, with less time in between, it's really leads to the need to plan and to be prepared and to build, not just be resilient and bounce back, but to bounce forward into what the new future is going to be. And so when we think about working lands, when we think about natural and working lands, we really, soil, I just go to that immediately, is that we need to have really good soil health. We need to have good soil health for so many reasons. It's the baseline of life. And if you have healthy soil, then you have a healthy system. You have the ability to absorb water, to maintain really robust water sources when it does rain. That's critical. You have healthy riparian areas, creek areas that are adjacent to all these working lands, that if you have healthy soils, you're not having runoff, you're having cleaner streams, you're having more vegetation that's growing within the streams that then allows for more filtration. And so I think that to me is a really good first step. One of the cool things that MALT was doing when I came on is that we were addressing drought through a really innovative for us, and really innovative throughout the country, small grants program for drought. And we ended up, it was an emergency action that our board came up with and our staff came up with. And we were hearing from farmers and ranchers that they were about to go under because they didn't have water in this, coming into the second year of the drought, about 3-4 years ago. And we shifted our approach, and we created a small grants program to grant all farmers and ranchers in Marin County with this drought resilience funding. And we end up giving away almost $1 million in grants so people could tap into different water sources, so people could move and use fencing to move cattle around, to do different grazing approaches. And so there's different ways on the land. And I think regenerative is a really good term that's being used more and more. That approach, climate smart agriculture, is another term that's thrown around. But really, it's just being smart with how you're using your land, what you're doing, how to keep the soil healthy. And that's a really good way to not only have good benefits on the actual output of the agriculture, but on water retention, soil health, all those key pieces that we move forward on and want to see happening.
Wow, I'm still on the $1 million, and I'm wondering what the impact of that was in terms of the land, the people that it serves, etc.
It was so impactful, and for just, even if you think about it at a community level, I talk to farmers and ranchers in our community all the time who said that they were able to receive a grant from us through this drought resilience and water security program. It's an acronym, DRAWS, which
Oh,
that's a good way for DRAWS is a good way for water. So they said that they received these grants and they were about to go under, and they wouldn't have been able to get water for their cows, water for their operation. And so just that community impact is huge. And when the drought ended last year, we didn't want to lose that impact, and so we went out and fundraised more dollars, private dollars, and created a permanent small grants program. And we've now launching our third round of small grants. And so these go to all farmers and ranchers, available to all farmers and ranchers throughout Marin County. And they're up to $50,000. And we've changed the focal round. So the first run was for climate resilience. The second round in the spring was for biodiversity for agricultural working lands. And then we're doing another climate resilience round right now that's open. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting to see that. And for a small land trust, a community land trust, to be able to do this, it feels really good.
Do you have any statistics on the impact?
We have data on, like number of projects and things like that, but kind of those softer, statistics, we don't have anything, but we've done a lot of interviews and we've got great videos and things like that. Those are harder for us to get, but
Right.
I think over, once we probably close out two rounds of the small grants, plus with the draws, drought resilience grants, we can start kind of gathering a little bit more data on it, but we've got some good impact numbers and things like
Yeah,
that.
I think it'd be great to survey everyone to say, without this grant, would you have gone under? Without this grant, what would have happened to the animals? Without this grant, how many people would not have been able to have been served food, or how much more, things like
Yeah,
that would be interesting, right?
so interesting. Yeah, and it's really, I'm not a farmer, I'm not a rancher, so I can't tell the story as well. But going out, there's one family in particular where they were going to driving, 20, 30 minutes twice a day to fill their water truck up to then bring it to their cattle operation. And so, the family was working almost 24 hours a day for this period. And so for then we were able to give them funding for a grant to tap into a different water source. And they then got to take a little bit of a break, and it was a reprieve from working for 8 months straight, going twice a day to get starting at, 4 in the morning, taking a little nap after, and then doing it all again. And that quality of life shift is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's the quality of life, it's the accessibility, it's the ability to maintain it independently, right? That, you're hoping you can do, because then you can be able to provide, have a life, not get overworked, um, and also work towards, conservation of all these things,
Yes.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
goal. So I think that, we want to promote all these things. We want to promote organic farming methods. We want to promote water conservation and reduce chemical inputs, so that we can preserve soil health, right? At the end of the day, that's the goal.
It seems so simple. And when I was working with the Nature Conservancy and I was working internationally, I was working in the Gulf of Mexico, in the five Gulf states. I was working in Mexico and Cuba, and we were working on projects, agricultural projects that had the same issues, very narrow margins to make improvements on the land, overworked families, staff, and really very minimal time to innovate or do practices that would then take them to the next level. So whether you're in California, whether you're in Texas, whether you're in central Mexico or Cuba, all these farmers and ranchers were having the same issue, which is, that is, such a huge data point right there. And that we need to shift it because we all need to eat. We all care about the land, and we need to take care of the people who are feeding us and who are stewarding our lands.
I agree. I mean, it's clear for me from the few minutes that we've been speaking why you're doing this, right? So now that you've joined Malt and you've been there, what are you hoping to spearhead in the next year? It's like it's going to be your third year there, and you've been there for 2 years. So tell us, where was Malt before you came on, and what are some of the things you're hoping to achieve through Malt, with Malt, and because of Malt?
Yeah, well, so I came on, and Malt has, like I said in the intro, I mean, we have been the first, and we have focused so heavily on protecting agricultural land through conservation easements, and we have done a fantastic job, and we've been so successful. But it's also a time now that we need to shift a little bit, that we've been so successful that we actually now need to think about what's the next phase and how do we steward the lands we're protecting, invest back into those, and then, think about what's happening next for an organization. And so, my role coming in was really thinking about how do we first, secure the organization and really be focused on some key pillars of work. I came in, at a pretty hard time, not only for just the organization in general, but for uh, really the United States, focus of coming out of COVID. We were all having there was a challenging time. We had a lot of turnover on staff. There's just a lot of unrest happening, and feelings of not being stable and safe. And so I came in and I worked with our fantastic board and our team, and we really stabilized the organization. We rolled out a conservation strategy of working through 5 pillars to focus where we're going as an organization. So the first pillar is to preserve agriculture. The second is protect biodiversity. The third is to build climate resilience. And then the fourth is to connect our community. And then the final one is to strengthen the organization. And so that's really the work that I solidified in the first year. This last year, I've been working really strong with the board to think about what is the future of the organization, how is the board moving forward and supporting our work. As a nonprofit, board of directors is critical to be strong, to be well resourced, and to then be able to give back to the organization and grow. And so, this coming year, my third year in, I'm really excited to be growing our stewardship work, thinking about, what is next for MALT? How can we invest back into the lands, building out this small grants program, thinking about what's next for land protection and how we help with not just protecting land, because that's viable, that we need to be viable for agriculture. We need to have land to do it on. But there's also other things that make agricultural viable. The economy, making sure that we have people coming in and can afford and be able to access land. Housing is a critical piece as well too. So lots of kind of nuances within what it means to have viable agriculture in a community.
So, as you're building out your strategy for this, with the team, with the board, what role does research play in all this for you?
Yeah, I have mixed approaches to research. I think sometimes we really need it, and then sometimes I'm like, let's just get it done. And I think that we have, there's been so much fantastic research around stewardship and land protection and what it means to do good work on the land, and how to get more carbon sequestration and better approaches for land protection and water retention, all those things. And so I think that there's a lot of research around that. I What I'm really interested in seeing more research around is more of these social sciences and what it means to have better housing, what it means to have economically viable approach to farming. How do we get people into what does it take to get people from wanting to farm to actually farming? And so I think that there's some really good focal areas of research that we could be doing. And then partnering is always critical. I'm not going to have our team focus on doing research when we can partner with an amazing university or think tank or fantastic group of people who are already doing that, and that's their specialty.
It makes good sense to me. I mean, why reinvent the wheel, right? You might ask other questions that might beg different research, but I mean, it's a great place to start, especially to have that university resource
Oh yeah.
because they have so much, they have money, they've got people, they've got time, they've got all the different things that they need that we only wish we had the resources to create
Yeah.
it in our own organizations,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We're applied community-based organization. We're not a research organization. But there's plenty of space for us to connect and partner. So,
Who would be your ideal partners?
oh, I mean, we've got amazing partners right now. And so that's great. We're able to partner, as I was talking about, building up the board.
I was
Okay.
just going to say, maybe you could give us shout out to like a few partners that really make an impact for you.
Yeah, well, we had the UC Berkeley Cal Bears on Boards graduate students work with us throughout the whole year, and they come from the Haas School of Business, and they
Mhm.
focus on board health. And we had, really amazing relationships throughout the year to help us with our board health and thinking about governance and all those really fun
Mhm.
things about boards of directors that every day you don't really dig into. And so that was fantastic. We work locally with our resource conservation districts. We have a fantastic one in Marin. There's a few in Sonoma County. We have great partners at the UC Extension. We're just we're so fortunate here. We're part of a collective, the Marin Carbon Project, that's been going on for a really long time and has made so many inroads. Talk about research on carbon farming and
Mhm.
how important that is, and that's how now that's grown to be a household term almost. And there's funding at the federal level for carbon farming across the United States now, and thanks to a lot of the Marin Carbon Project. So we're fortunate. We're in the Bay Area. There's so many people thinking about so many different things here that we have the most amazing partnerships.
That's great, and I'm sure you only look to bring on more. Is there anything you feel like there's a need for, like a specific kind of resource or partnership that would be really impactful for you?
I think right now, we're all struggling with, what is the future of agriculture and how can we really make sure that people know how valuable it is to have working lands in our community. And so I think about, there's a lot of dairies are going out of business because they can't maintain. It's too expensive. There's, water's expensive, feed's expensive. So I would love to be able to support our local dairies, which have, you know, they're so critical. They're the part of the history of Marin County of the North Bay. I would love to see them thrive. And so if we could get, economic viability studies on how to keep them going, what it would take, the land connection of, how to build back dairies and get people to dairy again would be fantastic. Yeah.
Curious, because you mentioned this other thing a few minutes ago about all the other land trusts. You know, is there anything you're seeing at these other land trusts that inspire you to do something differently or that you want to follow in their footsteps and what they're doing?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, the land trust community is fantastic. There's hundreds of land trusts throughout the United States now, and there's a centralized organization called the Land Trust Alliance,
Mhm.
and the Land Trust Alliance brings together land trusts throughout the country and is a really great resource to not only connect people working in the same space but also there's a accreditation process. So land trusts can be accredited through the Land Trust Alliance and share resources, have good best practices for boards, for protecting land, for all the legal pieces that go to holding land. And so that's a great resource, and I'm always looking to that. We get together on an annual basis and are able to connect with across the country on what people are doing. I think for me personally, it's been interesting to see the last few years, and this is a trend in a lot of different industries, but especially with COVID, you see a lot of the leaders who've been in a leadership position are starting to retire and make space for younger people. A lot of women are coming in, people of color, and taking into these leadership roles. And so we've seen a lot of that with the land trust movement. And so that's been really exciting to see this next generation of leaders come in and start taking over the helm of more of these traditional conservation organizations and taking it on and making it their own. And so I'm excited to see that. I love connecting with other leaders, other executive directors in different land trusts who are recently coming in, who are we can share problems, we can share solutions, and think creatively about what is next for land trusts, not just our own.
Wow, so I think that's another great invitation to invite other folks of other land trusts that are innovating and strategizing in the space to connect. Lily, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
I love learning about you. I love learning about malt, and all the things that you guys are hoping to do. If anybody that's listening or wanted or watching wanted to volunteer, get involved, participate in malt, what would be the best way to do that?
yeah, like I said, jump on our website. We've got a ton of great resources there, good videos, just if you're interested in learning. And then my contact information is on the website. All of our staff are listed and our board. And so reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lily. And just
Thank
for those
you.
folks that are not familiar, can you just let us know what your website is?
Sure. It's malt.org. And so that's malt.org.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we would look forward to continuing this conversation down the road to see what kind of progress you're making and new partnerships that are coming up and how things are evolving because land and land conservation is for all of us so important and dictates the future of our world and our food and so many things. So we're on your side. If we
Thank you.
can help, let us know.
Well, we would love to have you, and we have lots of events out too on the land. So if you're in Marin County, come out on a hike, come out and taste some cheese and enjoy, the beautiful area.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.